Hello, everyone, and welcome. So glad you're here to join us today for today's discussion on air gapped by design, fighting AI risk with Kasm Workspaces. My name's Adon Neverett, part of the InnerSources team, and so glad you're able to join us. I'm here with John Papazian, our Chief Business Officer at InnerSources Inc., and our resident CIO as well. Together, we're going to guide you through this discussion and our session around fighting modern AI-driven threats. And we kind of decided to kind of do a little something different on today's webinar rather than pull out a presentation of slide decks and read those to you. John and I thought it would be best and more engaging with the audience if we just kind of have a conversation around this subject matter. And we all know AI. We've all, assuming we've all experienced it and used it in some part of our lives, and how it's being used in our corporate life, and often businesses are using it now as well. So it's a top mind of topic for most people. And we thought it would be an important subject matter to discuss on today's webinar. Before we get started, you'll notice in the comments section are my email address, John's email address, along with our website, www.innersourcesinc.com. So if you want to continue the conversation that we're having today, feel free to reach out to myself or John, or if you have a question that you didn't think of during today's webinar, feel free to reach out to us as well. But again, happy that you're here. This session is being recorded, and so all of you will get a copy of this recording at the end of the webinar. We are encouraging you to ask questions. We want to make sure that this is a very kind of engaging conversation. I'm sure all of you have some thoughts and insights and want to share your own perspectives on this subject. But please feel free to ask questions. We'll definitely have time at the end to answer whatever questions we can. But again, we want to make sure this is a very engaging experience for everyone. With that said, why don't we just kind of jump in and John, when we talk about air gapping, what immediately comes to mind when you think of air gapping AI? And in your opinion, does it make AI less functional when you think of air gapping? Maybe you can start the conversation there.
Sure. Thank you, Adon. Air gapping is in some respects the draconian effort, the big effort to wall off the environment because people are unsure what they can and can't do, or what it can and can't do, and in an effort to protect the corporate enterprise. This approach, the air gapping approach, has been deployed successfully for the DoD, but this is for specific cases. When we look at commercial environments and we look at enterprises in those commercial environments, there is a need for interaction with different parts of the organization. And so air gapping becomes a bit more challenging. And so we wanted to actually start from that point of view and bring people to the idea of maybe there's something that can be done that can be close to air gapping, where one feels safe, but at the same time is able to have some reasonable interactions within the enterprise. So in that light, there is a couple of ideas that are key that help this, and in particular is the idea of containers and creating a dome in which protection is occurring, so the AI can be done inside of a dome, and so if it needs to interact with data, interact with individuals, the individuals can be brought into the dome, or the data can be brought into the dome, and exfiltration gets controlled. The ability to seep out gets controlled. That seems to be that is a good working model, and as well as using the containers to partition off the rest of the enterprise so that, say, for example, the ERP activity, the HR activity, the accounting activity can be done isolated from in these environments. So especially when the AI moves into enterprise. So we want to kind of explore that idea.
And maybe for the audience, John, you can kind of just go a little deeper into um, uh, container technology and the idea of isolating, and why it was even developed by the DoD from the beginning, and
Sure.
and then maybe we can, because I know as a seasoned CIO for 20 plus years in the financial services industry, you have some real use cases that you're familiar with, and maybe you could share that with the audience as well.
Sure. So the Department of Defense in 2017 had initiated a project to see how they can control data, especially with with the AI coming, to ensure that data is the AI does not exit or exfiltrate the environment, as well as get infiltrated. And so the project Maven was that inception point. It is the turning point for container technology. It really puts it ramps it up and makes it a viable product. The Where this excels and where it differentiates from the existing environment is that uh, historically the environments have been uh, you can think of them as the VAX, the Unix, the Windows, the IBM mainframes, and then as we've seen in the late 80s and late 90s, we have the Citrixes of the world and the VMwares of the world. So the hypervisor environments where the PC environment is beginning to present itself as a multi-user, multi-session type of situation. But all of these have fairly clear connectivity boundaries. And the container world has the ability to do, as it describes, contain what's going on in a session and make it and make the rest of the enterprise invisible to it. Uh, that concept is very powerful because it begins to decrease the different points of attack, and in doing so, decrease the amount of complexity the IT department has to manage in protecting its environment. So an example for this was in 2004, where the company I was CIO is going public. I'm the CIO for there. And the accounting system, the finance system, required an extensive array of controls to be auditable, to document fraud. And our team put a strategy together, which was to isolate the uh, uh, the accounting system and make it only accessible through what at that time was we had a Citrix environment. And so we reduced, and in doing so, we created a protective ring. In essence, the the finance system was sitting inside the dome, and the only way through was through logins from Citrix, and then from Citrix, you had your session to access the finance system. That is the model that makes things invisible. And in doing so, that invisibility made it completely baffled the auditors. I remember very well. They were like, well, we need these controls, we need that controls. And we said, you don't, because we've locked that all down. The only controls you need, the only forensics you need is who is logging in, because everything else is preemptively shut down. And that is where the container concept and the DoD went and made it a turning point from a into what's becoming the industry norm, or becoming the industry leading norm, which is, can we isolate environments and simplify the protective complexities to just a few items that people understand? And in doing so, we create a very robust way of securing things. Something else that I think is critical to point out was we used the term invisibility, and in doing so, that also became a defense posture rather than what we're used to with the antivirus products of the world. We understand we'll get hacked. We understand we'll have viruses. And so we're constantly evolving our defense capabilities. And every year, every 2 years, there's a new set of companies that come out that say we do it better than the previous ones. And each company has multiple layers of defense mechanisms. All of that got reduced because the financial system was invisible. All of that gets reduced because the container environment is invisible. So a long answer, but very critical to understand the container capabilities, particularly for immutability and ephemeralness in their nature.
And I think that's kind of a good transition into kind of helping the audience understand where we've been when it comes to malware and defense to where we are, and kind of walk them through the timeline and how the DoD's kind of changed the narrative, if you will, John.
Sure.
As a result of this container technology.
Sure. So there's a metaphor that we use, or an analogy that we use. We call it the castle and moat. And its very simple concept is, if we just basically take ourselves back to the Middle Ages, castles are the main defense when attackers come in. As the castles got breached, more and more defenses got put into place, including moats, including turrets. And each time the new innovation that took place in the castle, the attackers figured out a new attack. And in the end, the castle and moat strategy failed. That is how we liken the malware, the ransomware, and all of those attacking situations. What we are doing today is what was done in the early 70s, early 80s, all of the 90s, and for the last 2 decades. Every 2 to 5 years, a new version of attack, a new version of a new strategy is put into place, and the castle and moat has to figure out a new way of defending itself. What is most interesting is that Adon and I were on, as our part of our jobs, we're out there getting to know our customers, getting to know our prospects who are looking for security. And they're always describing to us the different scenarios that they're facing, and admittedly challenging. There are times also that we are getting to meet, and I'm so grateful for it, we're getting to meet people who are in the business who do actual attacks, who help customers when they've been they've been hit with the products, and they are like the red teams. They are the teams that go in and do the forensics. And one of the things that every time we speak to these businesses is that they make it very clear, even they who specialize in, not even they, because they specialize in understanding attacks, because it is very clear that people need to understand businesses are not specializing in defense. They're looking for companies who can provide defense. These companies have made it very clear they can attack and get through any defense. And it can be done in less than 1 week. So the question is if the castle and moat strategy doesn't work, what is really the option here? And what we think is, and what we like is to make ourselves stealthy, to make the environment invisible. So the more invisible we can make the environment, the more we're flipping the narrative on the attackers, and the more likely they are to not attack because they don't see, they're not aware of, and they can't find places of value. The attacks are about value. And this, I remember this in the 90s in conversations with attacking, in being at conferences and dinners. The idea is not really to make a defense. The idea is to just make it boring, make it invaluable, low value. There we go. So that the attackers just figure out, hey, well, if I'm attacking this location and there's really nothing here, I'm just going to go to the next place, because they are also doing a similar dialing for dollars issue as we as sales do. They're just going from one customer, one prospect to the next prospect and identifying who has the biggest cash. And so the idea of invisibility, the idea of lowering your value, is a very interesting strategy that changes the game completely and really makes the environment significantly safer.
Yeah, and to put that into context, John, and for our audience, I've seen reports and studies that show by 2026, 80% of enterprises are expected to face AI data poisoning attempts. That's kind of the reality. And even traditional security models, even zero trust, as we talked about internally, often leave gaps in advanced threats to exploit. And so, what do you say to an organization, or a chief security officer, or your colleagues, that when considering container technology as a viable solution, what certain features do they need to pay attention to that you believe need to be in place when looking at container technology as part of this security solution that we're talking about when it comes to AI?
It is really two very simple bullets. Bullet one is immutability, and bullet two is ephemeralness. Immutability of my workspace, immutability of my desktop image is key, because it is the same as launching a brand new laptop every morning. And then from a ephemeralness, if I somehow get hacked, can I minimize the time that the virus is on my device? And in doing so, as the session ends, if I end it in 1 hour, if I end it in 6 hours, the whole thing is trashed. The virus, the traces, the attack posture has been removed. And the next time I go in, I have complete trust that my environment is pristine. That statement is, those two bullets is extraordinarily powerful. And what we're finding is our prospects who have not been hit recently are struggling with understanding the power of that. And those who have been hit recently get it, and they're like, we want more, we want to get into this and become part of this. And so, for better or worse, it's just a question of we like to believe education and repetition. So the more people we can get that understand those two bullets, the more capable they will be in defending against the invisible attackers.
And I know you, prior to us jumping on, you had mentioned a very recent real case involving a very large insurance company. Maybe you can share that with the audience.
Sure. And this is interesting because it comes from the zero to me, and I, obviously we only are able to access parts of the details, and so a large insurance company in the United States was recently breached through a third party. And again, the third party is a well-known, well-trusted partner who's delivering a CRM solution globally. They're the biggest name out there. And the attackers came through there leveraging the zero trust. So obviously the two sides have trust, and the large insurance company has been hacked, and they have siphoned off all 1+ million customer data. There's a point in which we all get numb to these numbers, but at some point it hits home. It hits home to us individually, and again, this is the idea of what can we do to contain the environment? What can we do to make things a little more challenging for the hackers, but using a different approach. The one that actually I find equally, and if not more compelling, is the one that happened in Sweden less than a month ago, where a software vendor who has, again, zero trust provided with municipalities and cities in Sweden shut down, I believe, some 200 cities because the hackers came through and propagated onto the environments of the municipalities and was able to get to the personal information. And because if we use the insurance company as kind of a cross-reference, forgetting the point of it's just one company, but think about the point that it is a large and has extensive IT department, extensive resources. When this hits, and comparing this to Sweden, when these are smaller cities, medium cities, they don't have the resources, they don't have the IT infrastructure. And it's not about the defense, but about what do you do at that moment? They shut down the city. They don't know what to do. They have to bring in specialists. I don't mean it, they don't know what to do, but to do the repairs, they have to shut down so that the propagation is minimized, and they go through in a much more slower approach in resolving it. And so the impact is, in that situation, much more impactful because community services were halted.
No, I think we've kind of gotten numb to reading about these case studies over the last several years, 3 decades, if you will, or longer, actually. And we just kind of go about our day doing every normal routine of how we defend. We oftentimes don't have the time to really think about what options are out there, what alternatives are out there for us to kind of prevent this from happening in the future. I know, and I was just recently at a Chicago security summit here, and all the security professionals that I was engaged with and having conversations with, they're always concerned about implementing something new and how disruptive that can be to an organization. Maybe you can talk through about how seamless it can be and with very little disruption. If you can talk a little bit about that, because I know oftentimes when a CISO or a chief security officer is contemplating changing something, the first thing they think about, okay, how disruptive this is going to be for the organization. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
This is a great question. Having been the CIO, having had my tenure, and getting to chat with people who are in their tenure currently, there is a great strain on the IT organizations to do another implementation. It is the third, fourth time they're revamping, and it is draining, and there is a sense of what value is this bringing. And what I see is that this iteration changes the conversation a bit that has not been in place historically. Historically, the Citrix and VMwares, and this is not a negative, they were extraordinary. They were built at a time, they were built in a manner extraordinarily powerful to solve the situation, which is we need our people to communicate. We need to do them from a remote, and we need to make that easy. In doing so, and there was a big infrastructure under Windows. So the hypervisor is the technical term for that everything is built around. Today, that conversation is a little different, and nobody has really stepped up to the plate, shall we say, that matches what is needed. And the container platform that we represent is really the only product. It's the leading product out there that's doing it. And so what the phrase that we use is people today want to connect, and they want to connect securely. So that is the first change that's happening. And then the second change that has happened is a bit more quiet, but a lot of the IT departments and software development firms have done this since the early 90s, when Netscape came out, and then IE came out, and the other browsers, the browser wars, as they called it. All of the local desktop and instantiated applications started getting ported to the browser because it was an easier conversion to multi-platform, to a ubiquitous platform. Today, 95% or plus of the day's activities of an employee is being done on the browser. So the net worth of a full desktop application, or the need for a full desktop, is reduced dramatically. Why is this important? Is because the container technology can leverage and bring forward a very lightweight, fully secured, fully isolated browser that doesn't touch a local desktop, that can be strictly tied to the enterprise application specifically. So it can say, this browser, this instance of the browser can go to the ERP, the second instance of the browser goes to HR, the third instance goes to accounting. And now we have tremendous isolation with the container technology, with the invisibility, with the immutability, and with the ephemeralness. That is a whole new way of doing business. And the transition can be done in a very simple beachhead approach, just to show that things are working and not have an impact on the existing environment. So this is not a shift and lift. This is, let's just do a little expansion using some new platforms.
Great. And, beyond the potential disruption, which you very clearly kind of explained how very little disruption there is when utilizing this type of container technology. What about, does it slow down an organization in terms of speed of doing business? I know oftentimes every organization that I've worked with, that I've involved with any organization, they're always talking about operating at a very efficient manner. What are you seeing when container technology has been successfully integrated into an organization, and what kind of experience are you hearing about the speed of a process of doing business? Can you comment on that?
This is a great question. So this is more of there's kind of two levels of this challenge. One is obviously if I'm working with the tools directly, so I'm working with Docker directly, the effort is a bit more challenging because everybody has to learn the new technology. Everybody has to learn the CI/CD pipeline, the distribution of that information, distribution of the images, and managing that. And it's all kind of hand built, kind of DIY. And so where the adoption occurs is more of the tech-centric IT departments, the ones that are a bit more bleeding edge when it comes to it. And the more conservative ones have their, look at this and go, this is a bit challenging. Having said that, the next layer is, can I find a polished package that addresses this concern? And this is where we were trying not to say it, but this is where Kasm has really excelled. We were trying to not promote a product, but this is, as it kind of, we stepped into this, we want to sort of point this out. The product has taken the complexity and streamlined that. So if I want to do a Linux image, I want to do a Windows image, I want to do Chrome browser, it is a matter of minutes, matter of an hour to get that up, get that configured, and get that deployed to the consumer base that they have, whether that be the employees, whether that be contractors, and so on. And the other part of that is all of a sudden now I have automated updates, automated patching, tighten down on where the internet I can go. The ephemeral, the immutability is all structured in, and the auto scaling. So the business can move from a capital expenditure model to an OpEx model. And what I mean by that is they can leverage the cloud, they can leverage their infrastructure, and they can go from one workspace or one workstation to 1,000 instantly, and not have to plan, capitalize it, and whatnot. So there is a tremendous simplicity. And because of that simplicity, that layer on top of just the plain Docker now makes it the TCO come into alignment that everybody's talked about for the last 25 years.
Yeah, I think we've heard feedback anywhere, an improvement of delivery or speed by 20% on average, which is remarkable.
And then there's there's what, as you started hitting that, there was one point that I wanted to make.
Sure.
The TCO, there's another element in TCO. There's two more elements in TCO that are very important, that we surface them in our conversations, but it just doesn't make sense until the customer has actually used it for 2, 3, 4 months. The first one is the Chrome browser, the isolated browser. That is 8 times more efficient than a Windows desktop that the platform is using, that the people are used to using. So what that means is that I can have 8 people using the Chrome browser to do the business activities for the day at the cost of the equivalent of 1 workstation. That is a powerful reduction. And then the second area where it is a tremendously powerful reduction is we were talking about the endpoint security and the endpoint monitoring. Because the items are tuned down, or trimmed down, the immutability of the image is set. If we think about this, the only place that user goes is to the finance system or to the ERP or the HR system. The level needed to secure that reduces again. So what can be a monthly cost of anywhere from $10, and I've personally seen upwards of $90 a month, can be reduced to 0. People can't wrap their heads around this, and it really requires experience. That they begin to realize that, oh, I can get rid of this one little agent, I can get rid of the second agent, until finally about 4 months later, they realize that they don't need an agent at all, because the only activity the employee can do is go to the very place they're supposed to.
And beyond the technical defenses, John, how does compliance fit into this and play a role in this? You can touch on that for a bit.
Sure. So great question. We have looked at compliance as a very important key to this, and so the container technology brings it forward so far. The container technology can provide some base guidelines and security, but what we're seeing and what we've met with a number of auditors, and we think this is really the key point, is that having an an onboard in the workspace compliance module that can track the activity to the internet, that can track the activity that's occurring on the machine, on the workspace, and that can do a validation and then push all of that information to a Vanta, to a SIEM, for verify that is verified and now auditable. All of this is automated, and this can make large corporations who bring on contractors extraordinarily effective, extraordinarily light, because now they just spin up a machine, they have all the details there, and everything's protected, and they're ready to go. So where this was significantly more challenging before.
No, thank you for that. And because I know compliance is often a topic of discussion when we're visiting with partners and clients. So I appreciate you touching base on that. I'm just I wanted to leave some time for some questions or comments or thoughts. I know one of our guests is put their LinkedIn profile in the comments section. So I hope you take the advantage and do some networking and connect with some of the folks that are participating on today's webinar, because I think that's important and to do that. So I wanted to mention that. In addition to getting a recording of this of the webinar, if you want any of the use cases that John had shared with you, send me an email, send John an email. I know you've been seeing our email addresses throughout the webinar. Feel free to ping us. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, please send us an invite. Happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and continue the conversation as this continues to evolve. I think there's a lot to be learned still when it comes to AI, on how it's going to be used, who's going to use it, and more importantly, how do we protect ourselves against it, and still be able to leverage it as a great tool. With that, I know we're coming up on 15, 20 minutes left in the webinar. I want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions for myself or for John that, or any comment around anything that we shared with you today? We're happy to talk through those. You can put a comment in the section or a question in the comment section, and we'll be happy to address it and answer it.
This is a good question.
Go ahead, John.
This is a good question. It is a challenging question, and so I want to kind of separate something here. So,
can you restate the question for everyone? And then,
so how does air gapping defend against AI-driven phishing, deepfake social engineering, or automated malware?
Great question.
And this is a great question, and this is one that we get in different forms, and so as a team, we have looked at what we've realized is that the container provides a base foundation for protection. And then what is the next tier that is constantly asked is really about the social engineering, and what does that mean? So the implication of that is that it's coming through what looks like an email. And so I'm raising this because what we have done as a group is uh, research the ecosystem and build out around the container. So a first mechanism that we described was the compliance the compliance tool. So that defends again or locks down the environment from the individual, or shall we say from an individual doing something malicious inadvertently or planned, or even against, and if a malware takes place and is trying to do something malicious, the compliance can see that it has written a file that this may or may not make sense. It has written, say, has grabbed some HIPAA data. So we're protecting against that movement. A second area of that is we have looked into and found an email product that has a significantly greater level of defense against emails coming through. So this is much more akin to the point that's being discussed about social engineering. Those messages are not coming through. They are being monitored and taken out, and as well as the phishing. So the automated malware. This is a key component here that is I want to sort of touch real quick, and then we'll go to our next two questions. So in regards to the automated malware, I'm going to phrase it a little differently. What we have uncovered, and I've been doing this many years, but I had never heard of this. And this to me is one of the more powerful concepts, is that they are able to place viruses on machines that are in which the machine, the antivirus software, whatever tools one might think, cannot see it. So it cannot inoculate against it. And that's why that's why we think the narrative has to be changed. If I can't see it, there's nothing preventing that virus from seeping through uh, an agent that's sitting there and has a pipe through to, the pipe can be, if you think of it as a VPN, to the enterprise. And so as a result, we think it's more critical to be invisible, but we also think it's more critical to use the 2 points that we talked about, immutability and ephemeralness. Those by their very nature thwart that advanced malware. So thank you, Naveen, for the question. Douglas, let's see what the question is. Which types of client environments are you all seeding the most use cases? We are seeding the most we are seeing. Sorry, go ahead, Adon.
Great question.
Great question again. We are seeding, we ourselves are seeding the PCI DSS and the HIPAA. We are seeing the CMMC. We are not experts in this, but we have partners who are, or actually Kasm, who is an expert in the CMMC. They are the ones that are doing that. So that is typically at a government level, and there is a tier of, our specialty is commercial. So that is the areas that we're that we're touching on. The compliance tool that we use, it makes it absolutely spectacular for this situation, because one of the features that I didn't mention was that it can identify documents that are in violation of those regulations. And in doing so, then either go through alerting or actually remediation in an automated manner. And that to us is superpowers. So when the behavior of an individual doesn't match the criteria for the environment, that's what it works. You bet. Glad to help you with that. And then let's see, Erica has, how exactly does air gap workspace prevent AI data poisoning? If data poisoning is already introduced upstream, how can isolation make a difference? So Erica, thank you. This is a great question. The key here is the fact that it is because So what's happening is that the user is moving into, we use the metaphor, a dome. And that dome is the area of protection. That protection is where the activity happens. And so we have a diagram that we show for that, but you can think of it, we've seen these pictures where there's a glass cylinder and there's gloves where they go in and do the work on something that's very infectious. It is that same concept, just in a digital way. We use the idea of digital skiff, but the idea is that it is isolated. So in the event that a poisoning has occurred, the spread is mitigated. The spread is impossible. It can be identified and then can be remediated, working its way upstream. The Kasm has, and Kasm's one of its power use cases is the OSINT. And the OSINT is all about the detonation of the poison, the infections, and testing it out, seeing what's happening. So as I work down, thank you, Douglas. I'm glad we could help you with that. And then we've got our user. How does Kasm Workspaces complement existing Zero Trust isolated frameworks to reduce AI model supply chain risks? Perfect. So it is based on, so its interactions are based on Zero Trust. But what is extraordinarily powerful is the concept that we're describing is the isolated browser as an example. So in the supply chain, when very likely the environment, the way I need to speak to that that corporate application is through a browser. Only the isolated browser has access to that data or access to the application. And in doing so, now I've got that security framework in place. I have reduced, because it's also Zero Trust, those two can communicate, and it is always ensured that a pristine session talks to the application. That can be audited and reviewed. Audited and verified. That audit and verify process then can be pushed into the 27001 framework. And so your need to give information or present information to the auditors now has been reduced to, here's the report. From an AI supply chain, AI model supply chain risk. I hope I answered it. Give me, if I haven't quite answered it, please let me know, and we can adjust a little more detail to it. I do appreciate the question. This is really a great question as well. It's nice to see that people are these types of questions let us know that what we're expressing and describing is people are understanding it, and that's wonderful to see. So,
and if we because only because of limited time that we have today, if you feel like we haven't fully addressed the question, or you want to expand on the conversation as it relates to your question, please email us, and we're happy to set up some time offline and continue the conversation. But we do have a few minutes left, and if there's anything else, any other questions that anyone has, we do have a few minutes left. One thing that I do want to mention, we do plan on hosting these webinars at least once a quarter. And don't worry, you won't. Every webinar won't just be you listening to me or John. With that said, we are open to, if you have a speaker in mind that you think would be have something important to speak on, a subject matter expert, if you will, that would want to participate as a speaker on our webinars, please send that to us. We're always looking for panelists and being able to have a panel discussion. So anyone that you know of, or even if it's you individually would want to participate in a panel discussion, please let us know. Any ideas of important subject matter topics that you want us to talk about, or discuss on future webinars, please let us know that as well. We want to make sure that what we're discussing is something of importance to our followers and to our audience. And so we're always open to taking your ideas and putting them to work. So don't hesitate to share those with us. With that said, if there aren't any questions, we'll give you some time back. And again, be on the lookout for future webinar information. Again, you'll be getting a copy of this recording. If you want any of the use cases that John had shared with you during this time, send us an email. We're happy to send those use cases to you. And look forward to seeing everyone in future webinars. And thanks for your time. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye now.